Welcome to the Airgun Extra Podcast, brought to you in association with Crackshot, the Southwest's premier airgun centre and ranges. I will put a link to their website in the podcast description. I'm Matt Manning. With me this evening, I've got my mate Rich Saunders, and we've got a lot to catch up on. We'll have a little bit of a look back on the shooting that we've been doing over the past few weeks. We've got some kit, new and old, to look at and talk about. And we've also got the usual Q&A section brought to you in association with Anglia Tackle and Gun. Rich, how you doing?
I'm very good, mate. Thank you, and hope you're well as well, and hope everyone else listening to us is doing good too.
Yep, I'm good, thank you. So, shooting wise, Rich, what have you been up to lately?
I've been really busy. Since we last spoke, I've been out. So I picked up a new rat permission, which I think I mentioned last time. It's another chicken farm. So I've been over there. I've only been over there the once, and unlike my other chicken farm, which is a lot more kind of tumbly downy, this one is very commercial, and the hen house is laid on a concrete plinth, so there's no opportunity for the rats to dig underneath and underneath the sides and get out. So it means shooting purely inside the shed. So what the farmer's done is he's put a couple of holes, like panels that can be moved from the wall into the underside of the shed. So kind of sit down there and shoot the rats underneath the shed through these pop holes. So that's been good fun. My usual chicken farm permission is just gone mad. It seems like the more rats I shoot, the more there are to shoot. And I was chatting with the farmer today actually, and what we think it is, he usually keeps the flock for about 18 months before he rotates it. And for one reason or another, it's been longer this time. So the rats have just been undisturbed for probably getting on for 2 years. So they've had an extra 6 months of breeding time. So we're thinking about how we can start really knocking back the numbers. So I think we're going to probably borrow the pop hole, glory hole model from the other chicken farm and shoot underneath there where they're actually resident. I've been doing some rabbit shooting as well. I've been ambushing rabbits. And you might read about that sometime soon on Airgun Extra. Just this time of year, my favourite tactic, just being out, nice weather, ambushing rabbits. And then I've been whacking a load of wood pigeon as well that have been on the fruit farm. They've just been decimating the blueberry crop. The blueberries are in now, but they're still kind of smashing up any berries that are left on the crops. And so I've been shooting an awful lot of wood pigeon too. How about you? What have you been up to, Matt?
Yeah, quite a lot. But very quickly before I start banging on about my shooting, your new rat permission, do you think it is going to be as ratty as the previous one, or do you think it's a bit cleaner and tighter?
Yeah,
maybe less prolific.
It's like one of those. I don't know about you, but whenever I've got a permission in the past, it's taken me several trips before I really feel that I've got to grips with knowing it and understanding it. And I'm sure there will be hot spots that I just haven't come across so far. There's certainly as many rats there as there is at the other chicken farm. The other chicken farm, I tend to shoot them all over the farm. They come out of the sheds, they move between the sheds. So, there's always areas to target them. This one, the opportunities to target them are more limited. But as I say, I think I will get to grips with it a little bit more. There's another shed that I haven't started yet that the farmer is after me to go and shoot as well. So that might be a little bit more easy to access. But yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah, no, I'm always slightly dubious when I get invited to do some ratting and find a sort of spotlessly clean, very tidy farm with loads of concrete, and I think,
yeah,
you may have seen one, and that was probably the entire population. Firstly, what I haven't been doing, I was frustrated actually. Speaking of Anglia Tackle and Gun earlier on, they had a summer barbecue which they invited me along to, and I was really, really sorry not to get along to that. They're in Norwich. I'm in Somerset. It wasn't going to happen, unfortunately, but apparently they had a great time. Had a bit of rain, but there was cover for everybody to get under. So, yeah, I was sorry not to make it, but it sounded like everybody had a great time there. In terms of my shooting, I've been doing quite a lot of rabbit shooting, and this seems to be something that we're talking about increasing now. A year or two ago, we were constantly lamenting the fact that there were very few rabbits about, presumably because of the hemorrhagic disease. They've really bounced back in certain areas, I would say, over the past year or so. I mean, what's it? Probably a 2-hour drive, best part of 100 miles between us, and we're both seeing a lot more rabbits about. So yeah, I've been doing rabbit shooting. Actually, one evening just this week, I had a rookie error, missed an absolute sitter. So I was on my belly, shooting off of a bipod, and I tucked myself in. There was so it was very short, grazed down grass. So I was down on my belly, trying to keep down low, and there was a piece of fallen burdock, just one stem of it, and I tucked myself in behind that, thinking to give me a little bit of natural cover. And I shot 1 or 2 rabbits. Another one came out about 25 meters away, really straightforward shot. I had to move a little bit, or move the muzzle a little bit to the side to line up for the shot. It looked perfect through the scope. Took the shot, absolute clean miss. And evidently, I had neglected the fact that I'd moved the muzzle in perfect alignment with that burdock that was probably, literally inches in front of the muzzle. Hit it. Pellet went on a completely different angle, and yet off scuttled the rabbit completely unscathed. Everybody will be disappointed to know that we weren't filming, so I made that cock up on my own, and it wasn't witnessed. But I can assure you, it happened.
And are you shooting much in the night, or you getting many rabbits in daylight?
Yes,
or is it nighttime?
This was just typical dusk shooting. Tends to be at the moment, because I'm quite lazy and it's still getting dark late. I tend to be doing the majority of my rabbit shooting at dusk. And to be honest with you, there's nowhere so overrun that I'm feeling a desperate need to start night shooting yet, to be honest with you. So I'm turning up, quite warm, dry weather. I'm doing the usual thing, turning up a couple of hours before nightfall in the hope that we've maybe get a bit of dew fall. And I think once that grass gets a little bit softened by a bit of damp evening dew, the rabbits come out to feed. So I'm literally just picking them off until it gets dark, and making moderate but not huge bags. But that's because I don't think these places are absolutely overrun. I think the rabbits are just starting to get a hold, and I'm just sort of chipping away at them at the moment. Funny, if one of these farms, the farmer has mentioned that he's seeing a lot of grey squirrels around the gardens. They've got quite a big garden, some really big mature trees are flanking it, and then you've got the yard. And he's convinced he's seen quite a few grey squirrels. So I set up a feeder when I visited there about 10 days ago. So I was there to shoot rabbits, but I thought, right, take a feeder, take a load of peanuts, get it set up, get the squirrels queuing up as usual, then go back and build a hide. So I went back this week and had a look at the feed, and it was absolutely untouched, including the fistful of peanuts that I'd put on top of the lid, which I usually do when I first load a feeder, just to give it that absolute obvious sign, here is food. So yeah, not a single peanut, not even taken by birds.
Funny enough, I've had the same thing on a. So I relocated the feeders in one of my permissions that last year was really prolific. And I started last year quite early, sort of not long after the beech mast crop came down. And there's loads of beech mast on the ground. And I thought this is going to be a waste of time. They're just going to be preoccupied with that. But I put a feeder up, put some peanuts up, put a camera on it, and lo and behold, they were all over it. I've moved them now to another part of the woods, and the acorn crop is just starting to come through now. And I think that on my permission, at least, they're preoccupied with the early acorns because, I've not had barely any hits on the cameras. But, it's that time of year, isn't it? There's, the natural food is just starting to come through, and they're going to get preoccupied with it.
What we would usually regard as the autumn crop is I've just mentioned the fact we've had a lot of hot, dry weather. The autumn crop is well ahead. I reckon we could be about 4 weeks ahead. The acorn crop has almost been and gone. Beech mast, sorry, not acorn, sorry, the hazelnut crop has almost been and gone. But acorns are well ahead. I wouldn't normally be expecting squirrels to be so onto them so early in the year, but they certainly
No.
appear to be. I know that's just the obvious stuff that we know about. There is probably all sorts of other, nuts and seeds and berries that they're also finding sooner than usual. So yeah, I think it's just a question of being patient. But I was shocked that didn't appear that a single peanut had gone and hadn't even been taken by magpies, songbirds, what have you.
Yeah.
Really.
I had the same thing on the fruit farm. I've got a peanut feeder that the farmer asked me to control some squirrels that were eating the strawberries from the strawberry fields. So I had a peanut feeder up there for ages, and they're just ignoring it because they're just eating strawberries, and who wouldn't? And I think because it's been so hot as well, I think the strawberries probably give them a bit of moisture and water that they obviously wouldn't get from peanuts. But once the peanut crop is in, then, and I keep saying to the farmer, this is what I'm going to have to do. When the strawberry crop is in, then I can really cash in with the squirrels, because then they'll home in on the peanuts because they won't be distracted by the strawberries, hopefully. So it's just a waiting game.
I got a feeling some of my permissions, it's going to be after we've had frosts, because there is just so much natural food around. But yeah, that's the way it goes. And hopefully I'll be proven wrong and get a few earlier on. So let's move on to talking about some of the kit that we've been using and looking at since the last podcast. I know you've done a review of the JTS Brawn Bullpup.
JTS Brawn.
Yes. So we've had it on the YouTube channel, and you've done a written review article also for airgunextra.com. How did you get on with that?
Yeah, well, it's based. I'm pretty sure I'm right in saying that it's largely based on the Airgun Max, the JTS Airgun Max, which I reviewed probably a couple of years ago now, and then it was like a sort of a 450, 470 pound rifle, and I remember then being just blown away by how accurate and consistent that rifle was, and it literally. Guns costing 3-4 times as much would be embarrassed by the groups that I was getting with the Airgun. So I had high hopes for the JTS Brawn as well, and yeah, beautifully engineered. Everything goes together nicely. Good quality magazines, metal magazines. You get 2 of them. It's quite a heavy rifle. I think it came in at something like 4.4 kilos unscoped. So by the time you plonk a scope on there, it's quite a heavy rifle. But the upside of that is that it feels bulletproof, bomb-proof in terms of its build quality. I think if I was going to be using it long term in the field, then I would have to put a sling on it. They had a couple of little quirks, like the air pressure gauge sticks out in like a little pod from the side, and you can swap it from left or right. Which initially I thought, that's a recipe for disaster. It's going to get snagged on stuff and what have you. But in all honesty, I didn't find it snagging. And when I was shooting it on the range, it's really useful because you literally just move your head, look down the rifle, and there you can see your remaining fill pressure. So that was really good. The other quirk, and I think you have to mention it, is that when you put the silencer on, you had to take the silencer off to fully undo the end cap on the end of the cylinder in order to fill the rifle up, which is a little bit quirky. I will say though that I deliberately took the silencer off and put it on again a dozen times and shot in between to see if the zero was going to be affected, and it wasn't. So it is more an inconvenience than a performance hit, I think. And the silencer itself it comes with the rifle, and was very, very quiet in actual fact, really quiet silencer, and it suited the rifle quite well. So yeah, I think the JTS Brawn Bullpup is priced at around about 650 quid or so. Yeah, good value for money. Probably, yeah, more suited for occasional field use because of the weight. But yeah, on a range or in a garden, rested, Yeah, very, very good. And even out hunting, if you're shooting from sticks or a bipod or tripod or something, obviously that weight isn't an issue. And pop a sling on it, you can walk around with it quite comfortably. But yeah, overall, yeah, I thought quite a lot of it actually.
Yeah, just a bit hefty, and I think in old money that's about £9.5. So it's
Yeah,
quite a weighty gun, but pros and cons, like you say, you might not want to carry it around all day, but it's the sort of gun that once it's on aim, it's not going to drift about too much.
yeah, yeah. The trigger was good. I must admit, to start with, it felt a little bit notchy. And I thought, oh no, don't say the trigger's going to let it down. But within a couple of magazines, that seemed to smoothen itself out, sort itself out, and yeah, and the trigger was good. Very predictable. No surprises with it at all. Same with the side lever. Initially, the side lever needed quite a tug to properly cock it on the backstroke. But again, within a couple of magazines, that seemed to bed in as well. And then it was operating just fine. Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, like I said, if people want to see more about that, you've done a YouTube video review, also a review on airgunextra.com, and that's available from the Shooting Party. Off the top of my head, their website is shootingparty.tv. Well, so the piece of kit that I've been putting through its paces pretty rigorously, and I've used it a lot. I've talked about it a lot. I've made several videos about it, written several articles about it. Hikmicro Alpex 4K Lite, and as far as I'm concerned, one of the best pieces of kit that I've used this year, and in terms of digital day and night scopes, it's for its price, ease of use, image quality, size, proportions. I just think it's absolutely brilliant. It's been brilliant by day. The low light performance, so you've still got a full color image, but it's enhancing it and making it brighter at dusk and in gloomy barns. It's been great, and obviously the night vision performance, just been blown away by it, and almost to the point that I've always been a real traditionalist in loving glass optics and remaining completely faithful to them for my daylight shooting, which I just about am. But I'm starting to really miss this thing because of the laser rangefinder and ballistic calculator. And you've been a convert to that side of things for significantly longer than me, haven't you, Rich?
Yeah. I mean, I must. What rifle are you using yours on, or what rifle?
I'm using it so far. I've used it a little bit on FAC, but mostly sub 12. So I haven't really stretched it on ranges. And actually, talking about what rifle have I been using it on, in sub 12, I've been chopping and changing it quite a lot. Using sort of between guns with Picatinny rails. And that's another thing that surprised me, is obviously because you can have several zero profiles on here. And I never quite trust that there won't be some shift when you swap back again. So I always recheck. And do you know what? I'd be surprised if it's been out by more than about 3 millimeters. Yeah. Literally like one click's difference. If that. So even then, whether that's down to the integrity of the optic or the mounts, I'm not sure, but it's been a brilliant piece of kit.
Yeah, I've been using it on a 30 foot-pound FX DRS, and that's just been fantastic. And as a result of that, I bought 2 more. So that's how much I'm kind of loving them. And it's hard work parting with money, but it really is worth it.
How many is the most that you've used at once so far then, Rich? Yeah.
I tell you what I like about it. I like the fact that because normally when you and anyone who's used night vision with a rangefinder will know this, when you put the laser rangefinder on, you get a little white splash of light in the dark. And I've noticed that no matter what magnification I'm using, whatever range I'm ranging over, that white splash falls directly on the little box reticle, so that when I'm shooting in daylight, and obviously you can't see the laser splash in daylight, and you're relying on that reticle square rangefinder reticle square, it's still absolutely accurate. So it gives you real confidence to be able to use that rangefinder in the daylight. And I've used several night vision scopes, and I won't name them, where the black where the splash is way off of the aiming point, or the indicator point on the scope, which is fine in the dark because you just put the splash on the target. But in daylight, you couldn't really rely on the rangefinder because the splash is not aligned to the reticle. But with the with the Alpex Lite, it absolutely is. And I've taken shots at sort of 35, 40 meters where I've had to thread the rangefinder through polytunnels and pipes and what have you, and it's done it accurately. You put that box on the target and it absolutely nails it on that box. And I really like the fact that the rangefinder box is white on a dark background and then black on a light background, so you're never kind of hunting around to see where it is. So yeah, really good. And the range, I tell you one thing, Matt, that really threw me with it is that the fact that in the ballistic table for setting up the ballistic calculator, there's no field for the weight of the pellets. And normally that's one of the kind of key parameters that you have to provide. And I thought I was missing something, and I kind of did research and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, there's no field for that. It just works everything out from the ballistic coefficient, which I think is certainly unique amongst the rangefinder, the ballistic calculator functions I've come across so far.
Yeah, I noticed that and was initially a bit worried about it. But my theory is that the ballistic coefficient will always do the same thing as long as the muzzle velocity is the same, regardless of the weight of the projectile. That can be the only explanation for that, really, can't it? So as long as you know the ballistic coefficient and the speed, whatever weight it is, it'll have the same trajectory, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and the weight must have a bearing on what the ballistic coefficient is.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it did throw me, and it did make me think, here I go, I've mucked it up again. But the ballistic calculator is very good as well. I've not had to kind of fiddle around with it at all. It just drops things onto target. And it's interesting actually because I've been using it on a sub 12 gun as well, ratting, and it makes me realize that I think the ballistic calculator is probably more valuable on a sub 12 rifle than it is on an FAC rifle, where you might be shooting it to sort of 40, 50 meters, because my FAC rifles are almost flat at 30, 40, 50. But with sort of especially ratting, 10, 12 meters, 15, 20, 22, 24 meters, there's quite a variance in aim off with a 12 foot-pound gun. So it's really been useful for that.
Yeah, I mean, especially when we're using bullpups, the disparity between the barrel and the line of sight is huge as you get in close. And even if you're trying to do it through memory and not use a ballistic calculator, you don't have to be very far off in terms of your range estimate to get the hold over or hold under seriously out. So no, I mean, I've found it an absolute boon. And in fact, talking about the weight of the Brawn just now and the fact that it keeps it stable, one thing I find with scopes like this that are traditional scope shaped, I mean, it is compact as well, especially if you sort of take away the fact that it's got a rubber eye cap on it. It's pretty compact, and there are smaller models on the market, but they tend to be the more set back, sort of boxy shaped ones. And I just find that when I've got all of that weight further back rather than over the front of the gun feels a bit light. It feels like it drifts about a bit. I don't know how significant it really is, but it knocks my confidence a bit. And I like the fact that this feels like, certainly when I'm ratting and I'm shooting off sticks, this feels like it's pulling it down and keeping the weight down onto the onto the support.
The ones that are also really tall as well, aren't they? So if you put on a bullpup, and then you've got quite a high scope with all the various different lenses on top of it, it kind of makes it a tall scope too. So
yeah, you need the ballistic calculator.
Yeah, exactly. But like you, I'm kind of at the point now where I'm thinking, I could really do without glass scopes now, because yeah. If you're shooting targets and you want absolute precise placement, then the optical quality is not as good, it's not as suitable as glass for that kind of shooting. But I don't have to worry about that when I'm hunting, or pest controlling. It's plenty clear enough, and the color mode goes right into twilight as well, which is, I know that's a fairly common feature now on quite a few of these modern day-night scopes. But it's amazing how far into murky, dusky conditions you can use the color mode very, very clearly. And what really screws my mind is if you keep both eyes open, so you're looking through your scope in color mode in the twilight mode, and it's bright and colorful and everything, and then with your left eye, it's all black. That does sort of mess with my mind a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I found that really useful in binds quite recently. Shooting rats that, to all intents and purposes, it's daytime, but in the barn it's dark and gloomy. And I've done a video that shows head-to-head footage, literally showing the same shadowy shot through a conventional day scope. Yes, there is the additional lens of a scope cam that does lose a little bit of light transmission and image quality, but it's still a pretty fair representation. And then putting that next to the super bright image seen through the Alpex 4K Lite, it's chalk and cheese. And becoming, this sort of kit's getting so affordable now. I mean, it's not cheap, but
No.
With the laser rangefinder version, £649.99, I think Scott Country are doing a blackout kit with an IR torch and an angle adjustable mount, which is obviously really handy because then you can make sure your IR beam is bang in the middle of the sight picture. That's under £700. I think it's like £699.99. But so you've got a brilliant day and night scope, ballistic calculator, laser rangefinder, and your illuminator and a means of attaching it and adjusting its angle for that sort of price. Really, really impressed.
It really is, and I've kind of banged on about this to anyone who listens. I mean, right now is the best time to be an air gunner in terms of digital optics, because there's new products coming out all the time. They're competing with each other. They're driving each other forward in terms of technology, features and functions, and they're also driving the price down over each other. So, I mean, as consumers, it's just win-win-win. It really, I think that the trickiest thing for a consumer is knowing, if you're in the market to buy one of these scopes, it's knowing when to make the leap and put your cash down and take your product away, because I think you just have to accept that there's a possibility that someone's going to come out with a new product, 6 months or a year later, or even less.
Yeah, it does feel like literally the week after next is now when the next one feels like it's going to come out. But I think you're right. I think you've got to sort of take that leap, grab what you believe to be the correct one at the moment. And in all honesty, if you go for one of the leading ones at the moment, none of them are wrong. None of them are bad. Some might be slightly better in some areas than others, but for what you pay, they're all pretty good, and they're going to do the job.
Yeah, I've been using the Zulus 2 for quite a bit, and I used the first version of the Zulus, and that was a great scope. But the 2, and it's hard to see how good scopes can be improved upon. But the Zulus 2 has got lots of subtle little enhancements and tweaks, nothing major, no big earth-shattering new technology or feature, but they've just done lots of things to existing components to just make the whole thing that little bit better. And I think it's pretty much the same price as well. So yeah, great time to be in the market for a digital day-night optic right now. As you say, very hard to make a bad decision.
So that's the new high-tech stuff, Rich. Now, I said to you I was going to bring something old and low-tech to talk about.
Yeah.
Have you brought an old bit of kit?
I have.
What have you got?
This is gonna look like I got it out of my dungeon, but I haven't, I promise.
Okay, right, it's your mask.
Yeah, my special mask. So this is my game carrier, and I've had this for years and years and years, and I've lost a few of the little bits that hang down, but it's just got a belt clip at the top here, and they're just leather thongs with a brass loop at the end, and just the ability to put a rabbit leg or a squirrel leg or a squirrel head through these loops and carry that along, by hand, or hang it onto a rucksack or whatever, has just saved my bacon so many times. Because I don't know about you, but I struggle to carry more than 2 rabbits and a gun and a set of sticks and a beanbag seat across fields and fields and fields, and sometimes, I don't want to carry a rucksack or a game bag because it's just more bulk, and that has just been, it folds up tiny, goes in my pocket. And if I am fortunate to get more than 2 rabbits or whatever, then it's just the best piece of kit. It costs next to nothing as well. I don't think I've ever filled it up, mind you, but I've got kits in there.
Live in hope.
Yeah. So what have you got then, Matt?
So I have got my trusty and very old camo head net. I won't put it on now, but this head net, I mean, I've got 2 or 3 of them, all about the same age. But got to be 20 years old. I don't know if you can still get them like this, because it's like, now they're sort of quite thin, quite brittle, nylon-y, sort of almost transparent netting. This one's like t-shirt material. And do you know what? I got a whiff of it then. It's just like being out shooting, because I think in that 20 odd years, it hasn't had a wash.
Right.
It lives in the pocket of they live in the pocket of whatever hunting jacket I've got on. At the moment, it's quite impregnated with insect repellent, because we've been getting absolutely walloped by midges. And that's actually, so obviously the primary purpose of this is concealment. I just feel so much better hidden when I've got camo over my face. I think certainly in woodland, white skin almost glows. Whether it makes any difference, I don't know, but it makes me feel a lot more confident. So that's its primary purpose. Secondary and very useful at the moment purpose is keeping midges and other bugs that I don't want all over me away. And also being able to spray it with insect repellent and have it impregnated, if you like, and just making that lemony citrus whiff. It seems to make a difference with keeping the midges at bay. But like I say, it's got to have done at least 20 years service. I tell you what, if anybody knows where you can get these t-shirt material type ones still, I would love to know. I'm often being asked, and I can't point people in the right direction. But brilliant piece of kit, and I daren't wash it now because I don't want to make it wear out any more quickly. I mean, there's all these theories also about washing powder having some sort of light index that some quarry might be able to see. That is a slight concern, but most of all, I just don't want to make it any more fragile, because I want to make it last maybe not another 20 years, but as long as possible.
Yeah, I lost my one that I'd had for years and years and years, and I went through 2 or 3 replacements that just didn't feel right. I didn't feel right out shooting with them, and I thought, well, you just got to persevere until it becomes old. I found my original one, and honestly, it made my week that it was even more mean than usual. But you just can't beat it. The old ones.
Well, another nice thing about these, they feel much softer than the modern sort of almost see-through nylon ones, and they don't stick to my. I mean, I shave twice a week if I'm doing well. I'm quite lazy when it comes to shaving, and then the modern ones stick to my stubble like Velcro, and when I turn, it feels like it's going to tear my cheek off. Whereas these just slide up and down, absolutely brilliant. So they're practical. They do the job. Keep your face hidden, and like I say, whatever difference it truly makes, the key thing for me is that I feel more confident in what I'm doing when I've got it on. Right, well, it's been nice talking about some old kit as well as some new kit, so we might have to make that a regular thing. Right, so let's move on to our Q&A section, brought to you in association with Anglia Tackle and Gun. I will put a link to their website in the description, and there is also a discount code there, a 5% discount code that you can use if you buy anything from their website. So, Rich, do you want to kick us off with the questions?
I get us started. Yeah, so this is a really sort of a basic question, but it really made me stop and think, actually. And there's lots of different levels, at least in my mind, to answering this. But a question that came in, I think, via YouTube was, what is it about airgun shooting that you enjoy most?
Well, it's a good question. I could bang on about it all night, so I will try to be quick. It's difficult. It's challenging. So I like that, having to rise to the challenge. I love fishing as well, and there's a similar appeal there of pitting your wits against something which, on many occasions, seems to be, more than one step ahead. So there's that sort of challenge against nature. I love with edible quarry. I love the sort of foraging, putting wild meat on the table side of it. I think there's a bit of caveman in all of us, maybe more in me than's healthy. And I certainly notice it when the days start getting shorter, and it gets darker and colder. I've got this urge to be out hunting, and again, it definitely gets noticeably stronger then, and it fulfills that, I don't know, that sort of caveman DNA. And the other thing for me is I enjoy the solitude. I know we spoke a while ago about whether we shoot in company or not, and I said, I find I'm quieter and therefore shoot more if I'm on my own. But another reason I enjoy it is because I genuinely enjoy being out in the wild on my own, with my own thoughts, and just processing the things of the last day, weeks, whatever. Just that bit of quiet downtime, unwinding, usually in lovely surroundings. Off the top of my head, and keeping it quick, that's probably the main appeal to me. What about you?
Yeah, funny enough, I've been asked this question a couple of times, usually by sort of friends of friends at dinner parties, when they're kind of, what do you do for a living? And eventually it comes around, you shoot things. And for a long time, I think they thought I was a mafia hitman. But and it's hard to explain that. Yes, when I go out shooting, I go out shooting to kill things, but I don't necessarily get enjoyment from the killing. And if I was going out, and I think I talked about this before, if I was shooting things simply to make them dead, then I don't think I could do it. So I enjoy the challenge of shooting. Of course, putting something on the floor at the end of the day is what it's all about. But I like the fact that I'm doing it for a purpose, that I'm contributing even in a small way to a bigger picture. That and everything I shoot, has a purpose. Either I eat it, family member eats it, a bird of prey at the falconry center eats it, or it's been causing a real problem for a landowner. So I like that perspective, and I just like the whole connection with those kind of baser instincts. It does take you back, and it does sort of ignite kind of largely forgotten instincts in us. I love shooting at night because when I can't see as well, I find that I can hear much better, I can smell much better, and all of those other instincts that you couldn't willfully switch on just come on naturally as a result of the environment that you're in. And I love that. I love the connection with the landscape. I love the whole experience of fresh air and being out in all kinds of weather. It makes me come alive. It really does. And I'm fortunate, I shoot with a couple of friends of mine, and we do a lot of rat shooting together, which is more social. So there's a social type side to it as well. I help run Reading Air Target Shooting Club too. So there's a lot of camaraderie involved in that as well. And yeah, I just, find myself recognizing how lucky I am that I've reached the venerable old age that I have, and I still have an enthusiasm for something that I had when I was 13 or 14 years of age. It's something that's hard to describe unless you live it and do it, I think. But anyway, before I start getting all emotional, so another question here, Matt, is I hear you talking a lot about hold over and hold under. What is it, and how do I work it out for myself and my rifle?
Okay, so we've alluded to it when we've been talking about ballistic calculators, particularly with bullpups. So I'm not very scientifically minded. Okay, but the arrangement of a rifle with a scope on top means your barrel from which the pellet is emerging is some distance below the line of sight that you are looking for. For the crosshair and your projectile to converge, you almost end up shooting, or imagine it as being slightly upwards. So you're lobbing the pellet up. So while it's still traveling below the barrel, it's going to hit the target low. They then converge, and the pellet continues to rise. It goes through the line of sight. It's going to then be striking slightly high. It then drops down to where you zeroed, let's say 30, 35 meters. So you've got another correlation between the crosshair and the pellet. Gravity then drags it down more so. Further away it goes, the lower it gets. So you compensate for that disparity by applying hold over at the points when the pellet is striking low and hold under at the points when the pellet is striking high. Now, the simple way, if you're using a conventional scope to work that out for your setup, is to get out and shoot paper or card targets. So like I said, do your 30 meter zero. Great, you're hitting the target fair and square at 30 meters. Now set out staggered targets at, say, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35 out, as far as you want to go, 50, 60, whatever. Shoot dead on all of those, and you will see how high or low the pellet is striking at each of those ranges, and then you can work out using the reference points on your scope where you need to aim off to hit the target you were previously aiming straight at. So yeah, that's hold over and hold under. And if you've got a digital scope with a ballistic calculator, it works that out for you, can shift the aim point, and you don't really have to think or worry too much about it. Have I got anything horribly wrong, or is there anything to add to that, Rich?
No, I think you're bob on there, man. I know that there are several free apps and software programs that will calculate the amount of hold over and hold under for you at different distances. But like you, I just went out on the range. I put a load of targets out from sort of 10 out to 35, 40 meters every 5 meters. And I just noted how much above or below the bullseye that I was hitting. And then what I did, I got just a strip of sniper tape, and I drew my reticle on the sniper tape, stuck it to the bottle on the rifle, the side of a rifle, and marked on that what how much hold over or hold under I needed to apply for different distances, so that when you're out in the field, and something pops up at 40 meters, I could look at my little chart, and that would tell me how much hold over to apply. I did the same thing on the side of my rangefinder, and the thing is, it will also vary for different calibers. 177 and 22 will vary. It will vary for different rifles in terms of their power, and also for the height between the scope and the barrel. So there's no hard and fast rule. That, as you say, the best way to approach it is to go out on the range, spend a pleasurable few hours shooting at different targets, and you'll soon get an appreciation for what your holdover is then. And then the other thing is, from a hunting perspective, it's all very well knowing what your holdover, hold under points are for different distances, but unless you can accurately gauge how far a rabbit or squirrel is from you with a rangefinder, then it doesn't matter how much you've spent on the range working at your holdover points. So holdover, hold under comes with accurate range finding.
I think that pretty much covers that. So next one I've got is, can you explain how you apply the general licenses each time you make a bird shooting video? And do you think that people posting content that appears to flout the general licenses pose a threat to our sport? There you go. How quickly can you get around that can of worms?
I'm just looking now for my soapbox, Matt.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so to take the first point, I mean, the thing to bear in mind is that all birds in the UK are protected by law. The general licenses exist as exemptions under certain circumstances to allow that protection to be waived for the shooting of birds. And if you're not familiar with what those exceptions are, then check out the Basque website, because they have this awesome chart that just tells you by bird species and by scenario across the top when you can and cannot shoot bird species. So, and they do change a little bit. They don't change that often, but it is worth keeping an eye on them. It wasn't so long ago we could shoot collared doves. Now you can't. There's no exception to collared doves. They are fully protected. I think the one that most people seem to get confused there is magpies. So you can shoot magpies. I think it's GL 40 and 42 are exemptions for if a magpie is attacking livestock and is also causing a problem with animal feed, I think is the other one. But I see an awful lot of people shooting.
Sorry, Rich, jump in there. It's causing problems to birds of special conservation status. Yeah, it's not animal feed. It's birds of conservation status, something to that effect.
Yeah, so predating on protected woodland birds and livestock. You're absolutely right. And I see people who are shooting magpies, and I'm not entirely sure that they are necessarily following the general license. Same applies with wood pigeons as well. You can't just shoot a wood pigeon for being a wood pigeon or a magpie for being a magpie. Conditions have to apply. And I think the social media thing, which is a really good part of this question, is really, really important because, God knows there are enough people out there who would like to see our sport banned. And we have a very active community now of air gunners who like to record what they shoot. Scope technology is improved to enable them to do that. And, I've seen several videos posted on Facebook that are questionable at best as to whether that person was operating within the confines of the general license. Now, I like to think that they are because they are responsible people. But if they're going to be posting on social media, then in my view, they need to explain why they're shooting that magpie. What conditions prevail at that particular time in that particular environment to enable the general license to be applied. Either attacking livestock or red-listed birds. So I think that's a really important. It's probably the only thing that I will go onto Facebook and kind of pick an argument with, because I don't want to see our sport go. I don't want to see the antis being given any ammunition to attack us with. And I think we all have a responsibility if we engage in social media to think about the optics of what we're posting. And if we're air gunners at all, we all have a responsibility to shoot responsibly, which means observing the general licenses, in my view. Right, soapbox has been put away, Matt.
No, I wholeheartedly agree, and I think, excuse me, I would pretty much echo that. And I think when we are making our videos on on an individual level, it's not always practical for us to go through how we're meeting the relevant general license and chapter and verse. But we would say, I don't know, that there's an emerging crop here that's being hit. There is livestock being attacked. If it's something that you can control to protect foodstuffs, we will allude to that. So it wouldn't always be practical for us to give the ins and outs of it, but we would certainly always flag why we're controlling that pest. And as you said, the BAS, the British Association for Shooting and Conservation, their website has got a table that lists each species and the instances in which the general licenses can be applied. It's so straightforward. I'd advise anybody to take a look. And I'm not surprised that you mentioned magpies, because that's the first one that when I'm watching other people's videos, that's the one that jumps out at me. People think that they'll say they're shooting for crop protection, and then they'll wallop a magpie. There is no crop protection general license that permits the control of magpies. And as you said, even wood pigeons, there are certain instances, and many instances, in which the general licenses don't apply to them. And yes, and I've said it before, I think some of those rules are ludicrous. However, that is the law. I think it's ludicrous that I can shoot 200 pigeons with my shotgun legally in the field behind my house when there's an emerging crop there. But if I shot one of those birds in the tree in my garden, it would be questionable if I said I just shot it for food, because then I'm not complying with, I hadn't shot it for crop protection. It's ludicrous, but it's the law. And as we've said before, I think once you start sharing what you're doing on social media, you've decided that you're going to represent everybody else that does this. And when we know we're under the microscope, when you've got people out there demonstrating how ignorant they are to the law and surrounding what we do, it's just ammo for the antis. So yeah, I think they do pose a serious threat to our sport when there are people out there looking for ways to trip us up. And the whole "I'll do what I want, no one's going to tell me what to do" argument, to me, is just childish, ridiculous, and it's not going to win any arguments with anybody, and it's not going to win us any friends. The best way for us to continue doing what we do is to be seen to be squeaky clean, and that's it and all about it.
Two other quick points on that, Matt, very quickly. Number one is that the GL exemptions apply differently in different countries. So again, if you go onto the Basque site, you'll see the general licenses as they apply in England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. And they do vary slightly in terms of species and conditions. And the other thing is, just on the social media side, it's not just law breaking by flouting or appearing to flout the general license. It's also law breaking by taking shots over other people's roofs, taking shots near to roadways. There's all. I've seen videos where people have shot pigeons off of telegraph wires across 2 or 3 gardens. It's illegal. If you're going to do it, then people are going to do it. Just don't post it online. Just don't put that kind of stuff on social media, because it does no one any favors whatsoever. Right.
No, I couldn't agree more. And I'm not sure what their motivation is. They must purely be seeking attention.
Yeah.
Because there's no other good reason for sharing the sort of stuff that could potentially, do our sport harm. Yeah. Moving on. It's slightly less contentious, although it has got the subject of lead. So this one's come from Alex Pender, and he messaged me on Instagram. What do you do with all the spent lead pellets you retrieve from your pellet traps?
Flog it. I don't shoot in my garden because, unfortunately, I've got plenty of other places to shoot. But at Renning Air Target Shooting Club, we've got 14 lanes, and each one has a couple of pellet traps on it. And every Saturday we dig them all out before the next weekend, and we collect all the lead, goes into loads of buckets, and we take it then to a scrap dealer, and we flog it, and then we go out and have beers and curry. I think the challenge for us is that we can't collect the lead that goes into the ground shooting at knockdowns. I think to do that, you'd be looking at a concrete floor so that you could sweep them up and all that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, I think that was one of the considerations with the lead pellet ban at one point, and that's gone away. But most of our lead is shot at targets in pellet traps that do a very good job of catching the lead. It tends to fuse it all into one big lump that's a pig of a job to get out. But we take it down the scrapyard and we flog it and then drink it and eat it.
Do you have any idea what sort of weight of lead you're shifting each month or quarter or whatever?
We tend to sort of do it when we get fed up with tripping over the buckets of lead. So it could be 3 months in between. It could be longer than that. But we've taken down 1/2 ton before now. Get it in the back of the truck. We're fortunate that we have a scrap metal dealer that's literally 10 minutes away from the club, and we take it down there. It goes on the weigh station. We've had 1/2 ton before now.
Wow.
Yeah.
My individual lead production's much smaller than that, and I've actually got a mate who casts his own sea fishing leads.
Right.
So he has the lead that I take from my pellet traps, somehow or other melts. I think he literally melts it down like over a gas stove in his shed. Don't ask him about the health and safety implications of that. I assume he wears a sensible mask. But he takes lead and makes sea fishing weights, casts his own.
Yeah, of course.
And that's where the bulk of my lead ends up from my pellet traps.
Years ago, our forefathers would have melted it down and made more lead balls with it.
Yeah.
But I think making pellets is probably a little bit too specialist now.
Yeah, no, I think selling it to a scrap dealer has got to be the way to go. And I'm obviously missing a trick giving mine away. But I suppose even if you're not getting rid of it via a club, if you've got a few airgun shooting friends, even if it takes you a year, in what you club together to get from your pellet traps, you could get a few quid from a scrap metal dealer for your combined lead haul.
Certainly, if you're involved with a club at all and you're not doing that, then you're missing out on a trick. You really
yeah, especially on that scale. Brilliant. Well, that brings us to the end of the Q&A section. As I said, that's brought to you in association with Anglia Tackle and Gun. They're based in Norwich. I will put their website in the description, and as I mentioned earlier, there is also a discount code that you can take advantage of. That takes us also to the end of the podcast. I want to say thanks again to Crackshot. They are in Newton Abbot, as well as their shop. They've also got indoor ranges there. Again, their web info will be in the description. Rich, thanks ever so much for your time. It's always good to catch up. Big thanks to everybody for tuning in. Take care, and we will catch up with you again in a few weeks' time.
Providing nationally recognised third-party accreditation through Lantra, the Airgun Proficiency Course, APC, sets the standard in UK airgun training.
The Great British Shooting Show, held on the 13th to the 15th of February 2026 at the NEC Birmingham. Book tickets online at shootingshow.co.uk.